Welcome to this webinar training on how to teach our kids about handling a crisis. This is March 17th of 2020. Things may change, but these are principles, and regardless of whether things go down, get better, go down for a while and get better, this should be a help to you and your kids, and maybe people that aren't necessarily homeschoolers even. Obviously those in homeschool have a bit of an advantage because it's all in motion. If you're new to homeschooling and you're caught at home, I think you'll find this information very helpful. And if you want more information on how to do it, go to our site independenthomeschool.com. We have 4 videos there that'll share with you how we approached it. It should be I hope helpful to you. I want to begin with a poem by Rudyard Kipling. It's entitled If, modeling in honor of my son's son, my grandson, Rudyard. And I think this poem really sums up a disposition we should have. So enjoy just this brief moment. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. If you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. If you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to the hating, and yet don't look too good, nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they're gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and, which is more, you'll be a man, my son. Well, applies equally well to women, just a different context in Kipling's letter there. It's the opening line that I want to draw your attention to. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs, he adds, in blaming it on you, which will happen. But we're in a day and age right now, and that's what this training will be about keeping your head when people about you are losing theirs. I hope you enjoy this. For context, I ran across this a few days ago. It said at this point everyone knows that toilet paper and water are the things that are really being bought up and hoarded dramatically. This little quip from an interchange between the CDC and people. It said, CDC, prepare for a viral outbreak. People, I should stock up. CDC, not a bad idea. Some extra hand sanitizer and disinfectant would be smart. People, I buy toilet paper and water. CDC, what? No, it's a virus. People, snowstorm? CDC, no, you'll be able to go out. You just need to be mindful about cleanliness. People, I stay home till snow gone. CDC, there's no snow. People, crickets. CDC crickets. People, I have 300 cases of water. CDC gives up. So here's our situation. As a result, we are really challenged, as it were. Churches are not allowed to meet or encouraged not to. They haven't gotten to a place of martial law or something like that. But there's a direness in the game, and so we're all experiencing something we've never experienced. Normally we'd like a snow day. That's different, a day or two. But this is indefinite, and it's fixing to expand for a few weeks or a few months. The questions that we're facing are things like this. How bad is it? And will we lose our jobs and our homes? Is the government doing enough? How long will this last? Is this going to change the world forever? I heard someone yesterday, I went and played golf yesterday, first time in a long time. The way I'm coping with the virus is, heard someone say, yeah, it's going to take a long time to get back. Well, we're going to find out that he's probably not the person you want to talk to. What do we do? Practical questions are things like this. So you can see Jody's involved. How do I talk to my kids? How do I calm panic? How do I use this as a teaching tool? And how do I help my church and community? So those questions are going to be what we're going to attack. If you don't mind, just really quickly, I'd like to tell you who in the world you're listening to. There's my wife, Jody, and there I am. And we're there in Texas at that stage in the sunshine. We've homeschooled our 5 kids from birth to college. They're all married now. We'll have 8 grandchildren in September, ages 3 and under. So we're obviously interested in this topic, and we want to stay healthy and enjoy them as well. And so I full-time really am a business building consultant. And so what I do is I help organizations and businesses figure out unique strategies for their own growth, really from understanding systems. So I really like to help basically the owners to get to where they don't work at all and the business makes more money. So a lot of times owners are the bottleneck, so that's what we do to get out of them. But my other bit of background, I have a doctorate in applied theology and was a pastor for 25 years and have written a few books. And so this kind of thing in our homeschool service and ministry and nonprofit type contributions is a match. So that's what we're doing here. This is what's called a teachable moment. Years ago, my oldest son, Trip, when he was in high school, he was probably about 16, was in Uganda with me. And Dr. Hendricks at Dallas Seminary had taught us about teachable moments. You find moments where people are more open or there's an opportunity to make a point or a lesson. So Trip and I were in Uganda, and we were staying at a hostel and hotel, and we were about to move out to the city on the eastern border that we were going to work in. But we're there overnight, so we look out down the hill in this certain place, and I said, what do you see out there? And he said, well, this is the next morning. He said, I see some old rusty equipment over there and some trash over here and it's a wall. And he described it well, but it was sort of wherever we were looking was a not cared for area. It was kind of junky and in ill repute or disrepute or disheveled and just a bunch of junk. And I asked him, I said, how do you think that started, Trip? And he thought for a minute. He said, I don't know. Somebody didn't do something. He said, I don't know. I said, I think it started because somebody left their towel on the bathroom floor after their shower. And he laughed and I laughed and he got the idea. And it is true. If you start in your house to let one thing go and then another, a little broken mirror here, or broken window, broken this and that, in time, the whole thing collectively starts to decay. So that was a teachable moment, and he got a lesson, and he's done great. So here we are with this moment. Kids are at home. We don't know about work. We don't know about life. Our sporting events have shut down. We can't go to movies, restaurants you can go through. I went to Starbucks yesterday and all the chairs are gone. It's all gone. You can go in and order, you can leave. So, a friend and I were sitting out on a rock, two rocks, talking to each other, drinking our Starbucks in front of Starbucks. And I said, this feels like junior high school to me, just finding any place to sit and hang out. Well, that's the situation. And we are in a great teachable moment because your kids are going to remember this forever. And what lessons they learn here are going to be lessons they pass on, maybe into generations. I mean, if you don't learn lessons, you can't pass on anything. But this is truly a great moment. And in my way of thinking, I'm going to tell you, kids worry because adults worry. They usually are much more reflective about what's going on than they're generating themselves. Now, they're different personalities and people can be different, but on balance, if mom and dad say things are okay, are going to be okay, they probably feel like they are. So that's part of what we're going to work on. You're a model, whether you like it or not. Congratulations. And when you model to your kids, you model in two ways. It's what you do and what you say. This is why the cliche of don't do what I do what I say is such a problem, because there's an incongruency there. So what you're looking at is the opportunity to both do and say things in a much more sane way. I'm going to show you how to do that if you hang in here with me. Spiritual versus practical. Let me say something really quickly. I'm not going to share spiritual answers. There's diversity of thoughts and ideas out there in this audience. And I have some strong opinions, and I might do a spiritual version of this about how, if you understand God the way I do, how we trust God and how that's included in the process. But by and large, what I'm trying to focus on at this moment is something a little more on the practical level. So on this practical level, I'm looking at two things I want to share with you today. One is virtue, and the other is creativity. Virtue was mentioned by Kipling in the poem as well. But virtue and creativity, if you can grasp these lessons and integrate them into the lives of your children, everything's going to change for the better. By the way, don't forget to ask questions as you go along. Jody should have allowed her in here somewhere, but I may periodically stop and take questions, especially if you throw them at me. I'll probably see them as well in the system. I want to start with something called a definition. The definition of virtue is moral excellence, or what we'd call doing what's right. I remember in Y2K, so there's the one crisis we went through, that the world was going to end because the computer codes were going to mess up the year 2000. And I had friends that were honestly concerned about people jumping the fence and stealing water out of their pool. That was a thing. It's always water and toilet paper, apparently. So water was going to be a big issue. And the one I'm thinking of, he and a friend decided to get a license to carry. It's Texas, so you don't get it when you're born. You have to actually apply and go through a class. So they wanted to carry, and they invited me to go, and I said, oh, it seems like one of us should stay alive to bury the other two. So I opted out of it. And yet there's still this kind of attitude or disposition of worry about if things went crazy and people jumped the fence, what would you do? And I told him, I said, what you would do is you get a ladle and you'd help fill up their canteens or buckets or whatever with water. That's what you do. It's called virtue. It's called moral excellence. It's called doing what's right. And you have an opportunity with your kids, your family, to have moral excellence in this crazy moment. Not, grabbing for all the toilet paper and water bottles you personally can get. The first key in this is to put thinking over feelings. When you're virtuous, that's what's going on. You're thinking about what matters, what's a priority to you, rather than following along with your feelings alone, letting them carry you in whatever direction. Panic is feelings over thinking. That's some of what we see going on. People aren't thinking, they just feel upset. We're going to talk about why in a moment. But that's the nature of it. But also, there's a kind of slavery that comes with feelings over thinking. When you allow your feelings to drive your life, you are enslaved. Someone I'm fond of from way back, a Greek philosopher named Epictetus, said it this way: most people tend to delude themselves into thinking that freedom comes from doing what feels good or what fosters comfort and ease. The truth is that people who subordinate reason to their feelings of the moment are actually slaves of their desires and aversions. They're slaves of what they want and what they're scared of. So when you get busy in this panic mode or in an emotional mode about what's going on around you, what will happen is you are just enslaved by it. It's like putting handcuffs on you and it's going to lead you around, or a leash on you and lead you around wherever it wants to go. So I'm going to try to share with you, I'm going to invite you to understand how this will change your life, because we're going to get your feelings back in check, or we're going to show you how to get your children's feelings in check, or your friends, your neighbors, your grandparents, or whoever. Key number 2, story. So story, let me back up just a sec. Story is really important because the story we tell ourselves about something that's going on actually impacts which facts we look at, the information we care about, etc. And so there we are. Let's stand here, and you're free to stand as well. So story is the way we construct a way to understand. We give meaning to what's going on. So when we see that kind of story, it changes everything. So one of the examples I like to use is it rains. Just imagine a hard rain. Well, for a person who is going to bed on a Sunday evening and life's good, pre-coronavirus and whatever's in your mind, that person just settles down, listens to rain, sleeps, and is comforting. A farmer who's had a drought and is about to sell the farm, and suddenly the rain comes and saves the farm, will dance in it, be excited. This story is a little different. And a bride who's getting married, and right as she walks down the aisle, it starts a downpour, is not going to be very happy because of her story. See the idea? So I want to share with you what I call the Great Pyramid. And this is about how life works. This is the kind of thing I would encourage you to teach your kids and make sense for yourself, because this is like my lifetime of summarizing how everything works. And it works like this. There's this pyramid, and at the top is results you get. This could be in any area. It could be in education. It could be in how your house is cleaned. It could be in relationships you have, friendships you won, friendships you lost. It can be literally anything. Any result you see in life, I'm fixing to explain how it works, how you got there. So the result is the end result you're actually getting, ideally the end result you want. The desired end result is the thing that actually organizes this pyramid. You start here. You want to figure out what you want. That's always essential. But then it starts down here at the story or the paradigm or the pattern or sometimes I call it fiction, the idea of towards the result, the way you look at life and reality and what's going on in this world, or what's going on concerning the very result you want. So with that story in mind, you want to get it clear. You want clarity in this story. This is the pattern, the paradigm, the story we tell to make sense of, to organize the facts. It can be a filter, a guess, or a want. And we see this kind of thing happening. We can listen to two, I remember when President Trump gave his inaugural address. You listen to some of the media and others, and they were saying it was great and inspiring and patriotic. And then others of the media kept saying it was dark. It was a dark, foreboding, terrible, something like that. One optimistic, one pessimistic. That's because of the stories that they're telling themselves, assuming they were telling the truth, and that would be another question. But I think on balance, they really, all these people on every side believe the story that they're taking in information with. And that's really the second part, what I'd call facts and fibs. And you want to use facts with honesty. This is the raw information that resides in reality, the facts, but also in hallucinations created by the conflict between facts and story. So a lot of times when we have a view of something, and the facts don't fit it, we fabricate facts. We make up stuff, or we look at the evidence and change it just a little bit. It resolves what they call cognitive dissonance, or this confusion or tension between the story of how we want it to go and what's really actually happening. So, and we do this sort of thing all the time. That's the crux of the problem, because what happens is our story makes us filter. It makes us dismiss some other facts. We only emphasize the ones that support our story. They call that a confirmation bias, and we're busy looking for information to back up our story. Well, that is a challenge, because if these things don't align well with reality, you're going to have a problem. But let's say your story's good and you've got the facts right. Well, the next step is you'll formulate a strategy for whatever you want. And that'll be how you'll approach getting it. And you want that strategy to be something you can be confident about. This is the game plan we create from the story. It's the plan, the strategy to get the desired result we have in mind. And then finally, there's execution. And execution with learning, the process, you take action, you go back, you adjust it, you do it again. This is the action we take that's supposed to follow the strategy as exactly as possible. If you have a bad strategy and execute well, you won't get a good result. If you have a great strategy but don't execute, don't do anything, you won't get a very good result. So all these things are aligned, but the main thing, the leverage, the strategic thing is that story, because that story tends to give rise to the facts and fibs we pay attention to, that gives rise to the strategy, rise to execution, result. So if you homeschool, for example, how you approach homeschooling will be affected. Jody and I approached homeschooling. You can get our videos free videos about it. But we started with the idea that we wanted the children to be happy adults, not necessarily happy kids, though we like that too. And we wanted them to be independent learners. We wanted them to be able to teach themselves. So as a result, as we looked at facts and fibs and information and what we could figure out about homeschooling, we formulated a strategy that was focused on reading, writing, and math primarily, and designed for them to teach themselves. We played a role of teaching the children, teaching them to teach themselves. We didn't do their math for them. We didn't sit by them all the time. We had them wrestle with it and help them conquer it. And in the course of time, they did. And then we executed, got to where we spent about 30 minutes a day doing homeschooling with 5 kids, because we had a system set up because of this pyramid. If you have any questions about that, again, please type them in so I can address them as we go along. So here we have, I'm sorry, I was trying to move my picture. It's on top of something. So there are 2 stories. One is, I know the future. Oh, I finally see questions coming out. Let's see. Post something about small children's fear around the virus. I saw an article the other day too about how children are experiencing anxiety, loss of sleep, nightmares about climate change too. I'm grateful we're able to homeschool. Yeah, me too. So that we can have some control over these things. Do you agree with keeping small children in the dark until they're more mature? Great question. And as a rule of thumb, I don't like to keep children in the dark. I like them to be informed, but you got to inform them at a level they can handle. But I'm going to show you in the course of this presentation what I think you should inform them about. And so we'll get to that. That's a great question. So there are 2 stories I want you to think about. The basic stories that people approach life with. And one is, I know the future. And people do this all the time. They're mind readers. They're constantly knowing the future, knowing what's going to happen, making predictions, and solid on them and sure about them. I know the future. Oh, there it goes. This is a mentor of mine taught me this term called foinking, F-O-I-N-C. And so foinking stands for fear of imaginary negative circumstances. And so what he was describing to us is structurally what we do is we go out in the future and we figure out something bad is going to happen. And we think of all the dominoes, more or less, really not all of them, but the first several, that are going to lead to that terrible future. And as a result, we over control the moment. Moms do this commonly because their great fear way back out there is they don't want to die alone. So they'll get back into the early dominoes and they'll over control their children to try to make them like them and happy and not mad at them because they're afraid their kids will grow up and reject them. And unfortunately, that's a pretty good strategy to get them to, because most children don't like to be controlled. They like to be grown and respected just like the rest of us. So fear of imaginary negative consequences. When somebody has that fear in their head, it will drive them to be over controlling. We call that a good person up to no good. They're trying to do good because they're trying to help, but they're doing it based on some future they've imagined and they're convinced it's going to happen. The other story is, I don't know the future. So let me stress that just for a second. I don't know the future. There are some of us, I try to be one of those, that don't know the future. I'm not a prophet. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, especially in the next 24 hours and the next few days out. Maybe long term, I have some convictions in terms of eternity or something. But in the day in, day out, this is not the domain of what humans know. But if you have a story that says you know the future, you'll function one way. If you have another story that says I don't know the future, you'll function another way. Epictetus, again, I'll just share one more quote from him, said, "The wisest among us appreciate the natural limits of our knowledge and have the mettle to preserve their naivete. They understand how little all of us really know about anything. These are the wisest. There's no such thing as conclusive, once and for all knowledge. The wise do not confuse information or data, however prodigious or cleverly deployed, with comprehensive knowledge or transcendent wisdom. They say things like, or is that so? A lot. Once you realize how little we do know, you are not so easily duped by fast talkers, splashy glad-handers, I'll say demagogues, and journalists. Spirited curiosity is an emblem of the flourishing life." So, not picking on journalists, but it's a similar thing. Not all journalists, but obviously some do make outlandish things because of their outlandish stories. And they always know what the future is. So they're very happy in their opinion pieces, especially to tell us. The essential solution. It's principle-based living versus panic-based living. Look, when you know the future and the future's bad, and we'll go through this list in a second, you're panicked about what's going to happen. That's what we're concerned about. That's what happens with little kids. They're sure the future's going to be bad because somebody's told them it's going to be bad. And as a result, since they're convinced and all-knowing, they don't have any other way to go except react against that. But what if you didn't know? If you don't know what the future is going to be, how would you make decisions? And what I want to insist is that you make decisions then based on principles about how things go. In general, you find that there are ways to live in this world. You reap as you sow, for example, would be a principle. If you want friends, be friendly. That's how it goes. Someone who is panicked about friends, let's just pick on that, and they've imagined that people are going to reject them. The way they control that is they only gravitate towards people that are so rejected they won't reject anyone, or something like that. They're busy trying to get the world to behave a certain way because they're mortified. And usually they just stay away from people so they don't get rejected, so they don't experience that. People who are principle-based go, I don't know if that person would be my friend or not. But in principle, they've learned, let's be nice and let's offer help and let's see if we have commonalities or something like that. So here's how it goes. Principle-based living is about wisdom. And these people can act and react or even wait when they need to. Panic-based living is really about foolishness, and it's pretty much all reaction. Principle-based living is about facts. Panic-based living is about fiction and hallucinations, making up stuff in your head about what's going on or going to go on. Principle-based living asks what's next or what next. Panic-based living asks, well, what if? And usually in a bad way. What if this happens? What if this happens? What if the world does this? What if we run out of everything? What if all our houses, it's that. Mind going crazy. Principle-based living, virtue. That doing the right thing. Panic-based living is self-absorbed. It's about me, protecting me. Principle-based living imagines many possibilities so they can choose the best one out of those possibilities. Panic-based living imagines only one bad possibility, so the choices are gone. Principle-based living is bold and noble and courageous, while panic-based living tends to be trapped and hidden. So let's think about the coronavirus. Actually, let me pause here. Do you have any questions about all this so far? So I want to talk about the virus a little bit, and then I'm going to show you some strategies to teach your kids and help yourself. Let's see if I've got any more questions. I don't think so. All right, coronavirus. Now, what we're looking at here, I'm going to pause and take a sip of coffee. In early February, almost, I think it was like Groundhog Day, I downloaded this spreadsheet from something called andology.com. And by the way, I'm not critiquing this person. I'm sure they've adjusted and I've checked in a little bit. I'm trying to do a good thing. There's no critique. I just want to show you what goes on. So this was a coronavirus prediction tool. And he had the populations, bunkers, there's the parameters he used for the modeling. This is called modeling. And infection rate at that time was guessed about 2.68. Incubation days, mortality rate was 2.22% mortality complicated. You see all this. Okay, so when this was published, or when I downloaded the Excel file, it came up this way. I don't know what's going on with my... So it came up this way. If you can see this, it starts back on 12/10/2019, and it's looking at these numbers. I don't have the columns up there, I'm sorry. But it's looking things like original ones infected, active cases, etc. And the far right column is the number dead. And see where the panic hits in, etc., the way this model worked. Well, 317, oddly enough, was in here. It's done every week. These are all week adjustments. And based on the parameters he set up on these weekly adjustments, it basically suggested that we would, turn my lights up, that we would be at a place of having seen 1.4 million infected and 60,000 dead. So 60,000 dead from the coronavirus. The actual number this morning, it may be different now, was 7,400 worldwide. This is worldwide, and about half of these are in China, in the Wuhan province. So there we are with what I'm saying is a model, and he wasn't promoting it that this is going to happen, but this would scare you to death if you actually believe this was what's going to happen. So what's going to happen? I know the future. If you embrace this model, you'd think by next week 146,000 would be dead, then 348, 820, 1.9, 4.4 million by April 21st, a month away, because of the exponential assumptions. It's already not doing that, and it's not going to do that. How do I know? Well, I don't know, but I have some reasons, and I'll share. We are actually not seeing what was projected in this model, and that's part of the challenge. When we get busy thinking that everybody knows stuff that we don't know and we defer to them and we don't make sense of it, all that's going to happen is our emotions are going to go wonky. You know, the reality is the reason you're upset is because you're thinking upsetting thoughts. If you didn't think upsetting thoughts, you wouldn't be upset. Same with your kids. So, how to think about the coronavirus. Is it dangerous? Well, it's clearly dangerous for the elderly and the infirm. The average death rates are like 80 or something. So that population, especially if they have medical conditions, respiratory, heart disease seems to be an issue, or coronary issues. So maybe diabetics, if they are in bad physical shape, smokers, COPD, this virus is not at all good for them. It's dangerous. However, I looked up today, and I think it was 2018. I may have flubbed that day. It may have been 2017, maybe last year. But I'm thinking it's probably accurate, around 2 million. This said 2,067,000 elderly died in 2018. So my question is, how many of the elderly will die regardless of the coronavirus? In other words, if we did a Venn diagram, we'd have the deaths of the elderly, and then we would have somewhere there'd be an overlap where some people would die that wouldn't have died because they got the coronavirus, if they do. And yet, the reality is most all of these people were going to die anyway. I don't mean that brutally. I'm not trying to be cruel or mean or anything remotely similar. What I'm trying to aim at is that when we do math about deaths, even, we're only at 7,600, 7,400 worldwide. A lot of these people, because of their infirmities, were just waiting on a pneumonia or something else. They were going to pass anyway. And you can blame the coronavirus, but it really isn't exactly causative, that this was all in play anyway. So is it really killing all these people? Or is it, like a contributing factor? Or would this have happened without it? What we do know so far, I think, is that 99% plus, 99 plus percent chance you'll live. If you're under 65, really, let's say 60, the odds of you, even if you get it, are going to be great. You're going to be sick. You may not even know you're sick. About half the people don't have symptoms. Some people get really sick. Some people don't. That's the way illnesses tend to go. It hits us all in different ways and degrees. But there's a 99% chance you'll live. If you're 65 and up, there's actually an 85% chance you'll live. At least the last statistics I saw, about 15% chance, much higher group, but still the odds are great in your favor, you'll live. Stopping things and quarantines have a purpose. And let me explain that really quickly. What they're trying, this flattening out the curve, what they're trying to do is slow it down. And if they can slow it down by us being distanced from each other, etc., then it gives them time, one, for the seasonal nature of the weather to change, which tends to affect the spread of most diseases. May not, but most likely it will. We'll talk about that in a moment. Number two, it gives them time to get testing and everything caught up and in place. It gives time for them to figure out, like Tamiflu for flu, a protocol for the coronavirus. And so this protocol is going to be a way that we've figured out how to treat people, what meds, what things to do to get them through when they're in critical care, critical situation. And then buying time also allows the vaccine to be developed and tested, etc. So that's what they're up to, and that's why they're doing this. And as soon as that curve starts flattening out, people will get back to life. Actually, people can still do life right now. It's just that some, especially the elderly, need to be stay clear. They don't want to get the coronavirus. By the way, if you do get it and you survive, you'll feel like a totally different person because there won't be the virus out there. I'm not afraid of the virus at all, personally. I'm afraid of everybody panicking. But that's another story. Do you know 1.2 million people die in car wrecks each year worldwide? 1.2 million. We've had 7,400 die so far. I'm not saying that it can't get to these numbers, but I'm just saying perspective. 10% get the flu in America, and that can be up to 50,000 a year die, depending on the nature of the year, the full flu season year, according to WebMD. And so what else? So here's what else. Viruses, when they start, run a pattern of being very infectious, and they get less infectious and less infectious for the whole population. Like the Hong Kong flu, 1968 was here, it was infectious. It's still a strand. People can still get it. All these things are still strands, but in time, the population gets immune to it. And they don't, there's debate as to why, but Dr. Mark Siegel pointed out the best explanation in my thinking. And that is, what happens to a virus is they sort of want to live too. And so when they kill people that quick, it doesn't, those strands, those little substrands that kill people quick don't spread as far because the person has died. When a strand that is not so prone to kill someone allows them to be infected longer, allows them to infect more, that gets passed along and that gets passed along. It keeps doing this so that the strands that survive in the longer term are less deadly in the course of time, cause and effect. You might call it evolution. I'd call it what gets rewarded gets done. Just the nature of what in that micro change world with the DNA of a virus, it just continues to develop a way to hang on, to stay in the populations, to keep people alive long enough to spread more. Those are the ones that get rewarded. The ones that kill people quickly die with people. So warmer weather. There's a study of I was looking at of Baltimore compared to San Francisco compared to Augusta, Georgia, for the Spanish flu, 1917, 1918, the big pandemic that we're all comparing this to. What was interesting is the proportions, the way I understood the proportions for Baltimore of number infected, number died were huge, like a big graph like this. San Francisco was about half again that. Far less people died of those infected. In Augusta, half again that, much less. And they've debated this, and I don't know that anything is exactly conclusive, but all the speculation is about warmer weather. And so there's debates about it's more humid, so the air, when you sneeze, it can't spread as far. Sun kills bacteria. People open their houses up, and there's more fresh air, so there's less bacteria. There's some studies that even indicate that, by the way, we're not in close places together as much. We're out of in the warmer months. And also vitamin D production. That's, best quality is through your skin. And so that vitamin D gain may have an implication for the immune system, do something important for it. So that's kind of where we are and what we're thinking about. What I want to do is invite you to start getting happier right now, or less upset. And that is by going through the 3-scenario game, okay? So this is what wisdom does. It looks at the options. So what's the best case scenario? Let's think about that. What is the best case scenario? Well, I think the best case scenario is just this kind of fizzles in a few weeks, maybe 6 or 8. But as April hits, that's the end of the flu season. If this is a respiratory thing and follows a pattern like flu, it could start going down on its own. We've also seen China has gotten under control, and South Korea. Italy, not as much. Of course, Italy has the highest population of elderly of all the European countries, so you would expect they're going to have more deaths because of who this in particular targets. So there we are with, in this best case scenario, maybe it flattens out pretty quickly in a few weeks because, we're behaving a lot different than we do even for flu season, and flu only affects 10% of us because we have some hygiene, at least in America. I'm thinking in my own context, my own world here. So we could see in a few weeks it flattens out. we start getting back into life, get a little more confident. They've got a protocol going. They've gotten on the ball. They can test people, and we can know and quarantine them, so we can really maintain control on this thing spreading. And so life can kind of perk back up, and they're doing a better job of taking care of the sick, and they're figuring out how to keep them alive, etc. And so then the economy starts perking back up. Everybody gets back into life. They keep working on it hard towards flu season. We get through the election. We tolerate whoever wins. And as a result, maybe the vaccine's near, or the protocols are even better, and we hit into a flu season. Maybe we go through a little another quarantine, but mostly catching those with it, or coronavirus season. Catch those and we go on. And so this turns into a scary but hardly that massive of a deal hiccup. The stock market perks up or whatever. That's the best case scenario, at least in my way of thinking. How about the worst case scenario? Pandemic, in the sense that millions die. It rages through the population and takes out the elderly, big portion of them. It turns into the hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of death. That overwhelms hospitals, that overwhelms mortuaries, that overwhelms, just think of, the funerals you want to have, et cetera, and you can't, trying to figure all that out. The disruption continues, that everybody just shuts down their countries and try to survive as best they can with no production, no real economy operating. And so it thrusts us down into a recession, depression, and medical overwhelm. And we get into such a hole, it takes us years to crawl out of it. Okay, that's the worst one I come up with. So, how about the third? Third is called the likely case scenario, or most likely. What likely is going to happen? Best I can tell, what's likely to happen is we're going to stay in our homes for a while, and eventually we're all going to get tired of it, and the economy is going to say, I'm sorry, I need you all to come back and be nice to me. And this thing's going to flatten out enough so we can start moving along with our lives, which most of us can do anyway, but we can start regathering. We'll probably have some different habits, fist bumps and touch our toes instead of handshakes or whatever. And medical science will continue to work and improve our ability to take care of this stuff in the course of time. So by late summer, we're probably in an entirely different world, much more comfortable, much more sorting this out. And as we move toward the beginning of flu season, which I would say probably this will parallel in early October, whatever, we're probably going to be in pretty good shape, well prepared. The economy will be back plenty on the way, not facing any more bottoms, but rather, on the mend as we've weathered this difficult blow. So what you want to do is, with those scenarios, kind of, in a way, want to pick one. Those are stories. And once you think of those stories and go, well, here's the worst thing and here's the best thing, and it's probably going to be something in between, most likely. Well, the way I would say it this way is, it's going to be, here are like 5 choices you have. And this story that you tell yourself is going to mean what you listen to, what news you pay attention to, what conversations you have with other people. And the first one is, it's going to be bad. And you need to pick one of these, I would suggest. Number 2, it's going to be okay. Number 3, I don't know. Number 4, I don't know, but likely bad. And number 5, I don't know, but likely good. So I think there are plenty of reasons to think it actually might turn out good. For example, the seasonal nature of things, the way science tends to work when we all get focused. We're all quite united, finally, about something. There's a worldwide focus on that. That's a lot of minds and a lot of energy. 99% of the people won't die, or way more than that. It's temporary. It won't last forever. Good will probably come from it. We'll learn things and grow. We usually do, from all kinds of difficulties and tragedies. And as I said earlier, the people who recover will get back into life. So I'm in the I don't know. I don't know. Could go bad, right? I don't know, but I think it's likely good, or it's going to be okay. I should have written the proper word there. I apologize. Now, if you use these tools, ask yourself, are you sure? You can ask other people, are you sure? And then practice. There's another question, and my computer is not moving towards it. Are you sure? I can remember it. And something on the order of, see if this will do it. I could be wrong. Learning to say I could be wrong is magic. It's incredible to get to a place of being able to say, I could be wrong. I'm not sure. That is where freedom lives. Creativity. So let me talk to you briefly about creativity, and then we're kind of done, and we'll be open for Q&A. Humans are made to be creative. And what that means is there's nothing and then there's something. So I'm not talking quite ex nihilo. I don't want to get a philosophical debate, but look, if you build a chair, it wasn't a chair is a chair, right? A meal wasn't a meal is a meal. So that's creative, the way I understand it. It's causing things to exist. Even if you're just rearranging stuff, you're still creating something that wasn't there before. And I would argue that human beings are made to be creative. I think we find this in the, whether you take it mythically or actually, the story is still getting at a point, and that is in the Bible, when God created humankind, what you find is we're made in his image. Well, and what you know about his image more than anything, yes, he thinks, he talks, but he's creating. Every day is a day of creation. He's a creator. And so if we're made in his image, what I would argue is we've been made to create. We're sub-creators. We find this problem in that a later story in chapter 11 of Genesis of the Tower of Babel. And in that story, God comes down and looks at what they're trying to do to build this tower to reach to heaven. He says, if I don't do something, they'll do anything they purpose. And that's sort of right. I mean, we can click a button and a laser shoots on Mars and knocks some rock off, and a spectrograph can tell what it's made of or something like that. That's just crazy. I mean, just crazy stuff. The fact that we're all sitting here interacting all over the world through electrons going, zipping around and making images and sounds and all, it's just crazy. I'm just saying humans are made to be creative. So the mindset of creativity has this view. I bet we can figure it out. I bet we can. And it's that orientation that says, I bet we can figure it out. What I'm saying with your kids, your family, your friends, neighbors, you're going to want to be in a mindset of being creative, of saying, I bet we can figure it out. You're going to be virtuous, right? Do the right thing. And two, you're going to be creative because you're going to say, I bet we can figure it out. Now, here's how to do it. I'm going to give you a little short course on creativity. There are lots of ways to do this, but this one works nicely. First, you want to get clear about what you want. So just get clear about that. What is it you want? And make sure you're clear about it. If you want a fun family time, be clear in your mind that's what it is. If you want a nice meal that is a special, we did one time for a particular reason for the kids, and we made them dress up and put candles everywhere, and it was like a mafia meeting. I think we ate lasagna and spaghetti or something. But we were talking about some serious things you want to share with them. You want to get in mind the actual thing that you want, because that dictates how you organize your ideas. Second, you start listing ideas. So you get in mind what you want, you say it out loud, get clear, and then you list ideas. Just keep listing. Next idea, next idea. Let's see, we need to get outside and do something that doesn't interfere with the crowds, but gives us something fun to do. So we want to go do something outside, fun to do, that doesn't infect anybody or infect us. That's clear enough. And you start coming up with ideas. As you list all these ideas, at some point you'll get an aha, like, aha, I got it. It'll be exciting. It'll be possible. It'll be something. When you get the aha, you want to stop on that aha, and then you want to act on it within 5 minutes. Whether it's to make a list, make a plan, put it on the calendar, whatever you need to do, you just get in motion. That actually, because you're already wired to be somewhat creative, is going to be great. You get clear about what you want, you start listing ideas, you stop when you get to an aha, and then you act on your aha within 5 minutes. This works with family and groups too. So you can all do it together, brainstorm. So, review. Model virtue. What's right, noble, good, right? Number 2, model creativity. So if you go through this with your kids, modeling by what you say and what you do, we're going to be virtuous, do the right thing, be helpful, be supportive, endure, not complain, not whine, whatever is right, virtuous, and we're going to be creative. Your children are going to come out of this with the idea of what virtue means and that they can be creative in the midst of difficult times. Here are a couple of final thoughts. Psalm 21, probably a good thing to memorize. I did as a kid, didn't hurt me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. As you go on, it gets to a place, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Right? For thou art with me. And then Matthew 6, 25 to 30, I'm just taking part of it. Therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? Therefore, do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble. Jesus Christ. So he's saying, look, live today. Tomorrow you can worry about too, if you want to, but it's going to have its own trouble. Get into today. I mean, right now, if you stop and notice, if you don't know the future, today's okay. Today is okay. Tomorrow may not be, but we don't know that. And there's a freedom in that kind of ignorance or agnostic view about the future. I don't know. So what am I going to do? I'm going to figure out principles. I'm going to figure out how to live this day. And that's what he's getting at. So practical questions. And I probably want to bring, let's see if I can get them up here. I want to get Jody into this if I can. So how do I talk to my kids? We brought these up earlier. How do I talk to my kids? How do I calm a panic? How do I use this as a teaching tool? And how do I help my church and community? Well, fortunately I have a touch screen. So Jody, can you see me? You know, is that bright? Or I apologize. I thought there was a easy way to pull this off, but I'm not finding it. Here we go. I at least have a touch screen, which is a great help. Here we go. Allow. I'm going to allow Jody in. Ta-da! Jody, you still there?
Yes.
Good. So let's talk about these questions. Did anything I say make sense? Did you stay awake?
It was excellent. And I just want to point out what Jessica said to us all. It's Psalm 23.
Oh, what did I say?
21, I believe. But hey, no biggie.
Who knows?
No biggie. Glad you put that up there.
I probably was looking at the 21st verse in there or something. Something happened.
Probably so.
Apologize. 23rd Psalm. 21st may be pretty good too.
Probably is.
So, so how do I talk to my kids? Someone asked that question earlier. What do you see right now? Do you see me?
I see you and I see the chats.
Okay. Somehow I have this presentation up. There. I'm having a heck of a time figuring this out. So my computer, my mouse quit working and keyboard. So how do I talk to my kids? So the first thing in my mind is what I said earlier is you want to, I think you want to talk to kids in ways they can understand. So that they don't need to be ignorant, because if they are, they'll be shocked by somebody else. Somebody else will tell them something. They'll hear stuff. Their older siblings will tell them. So, helping them understand it, and largely, I think as matter of fact as you can be. You don't have to tell. It kind of reminds me of explaining to our children about where babies come from. At the age of 9, by their birthday, if they hadn't asked us, we told them. And we didn't tell them in graphic details. We told them in straightforward details so they could grasp it. And all of them said the same thing, which is, so it's 5 times. They're doing math or something. I think that's what kids do. But they understood it adequately. It was enough for what they needed to know and appreciate. And that's what we were actually aiming for. Jody, I don't see your camera. Is it on?
I think so. How can I?
Jody? Jody?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I must have lost her.
I can hear you.
So I guess I'll continue to try to address this. So the the nature of it with kids is I would tell them, yes, there's a virus, there's a sickness out there. There's sicknesses all the time, but this one is really contagious, and that means that it's easy for people to catch it, and it especially hurts the elderly. And right now, what everybody's trying to do is not sneeze on each other, bump into each other, kind of be distant, so it doesn't spread too fast, so scientists can figure out what to do, medical community. I think that's very much the way to go. So Jody, I don't know what happened. Oh, I may have muted
you not hear
on
me?
my computer. That
Now can you
could be
hear
the
me?
problem. I don't know why I don't see you. Something's wrong. Jody, you still there?
Yes, I am.
I don't know what my computer is doing. Why don't you have a picture?
I don't know.
In the bottom left, it says video. You click it. I think everybody would much rather look at you than me.
Well, I see the microphone. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, I see the microphone. I don't see the little
Video thing?
video thing.
Well, I don't know what it is. You're on your laptop?
I am.
Okay. So anything you want to say about how to talk to your kids or how to talk to little
Well,
kids?
I think what you said was excellent, and I do think that it would be kind of nice to think, oh, well, they're little, I don't need to say anything, and they probably are clueless, but they pick up on our emotions. They pick up on what's going on. They obviously pick up people are home that shouldn't be home or that kind of thing. Dad might normally go to work, but he's at home. And like you said, I think one of the key things is other kids say things. And so one of the things is, what have you heard? What do you know? What do you think? Or they hear you watching the news or whatever. So I think you can ask them kind of.
Yeah, and I think Jody brings up something good with older kids. You really want to talk it through. We always did this. We'd go to a movie and watch something, and then we'd go out to lunch, and I'd get them to debrief the movie. We watched Harry Potter, witchcraft and magic and all. And then we debriefed it. What was good? What was bad? What was virtuous? What was the kind of thing that we would resonate with? What kind of things we didn't? And so getting them to think it through for themselves, be able to look at all sides, is a great help. That's the power of this virtuous wisdom orientation. And what happens is they're not caught in the emotion of it all because they don't see only one possibility. That's what's upsetting. When you see one possibility and it's bad and you can't think any clearer than that story, it makes you only see certain information, hallucinate the rest, and reinforce your panic. That's what goes on. And, you know, the media helps with this a lot. There are a bunch of journalists. There's a great audio of Dr. Drew talking about getting on to journalists. Just say, don't listen to them. Listen to CDC. Listen to people qualified at this stuff, but don't listen to journalists spouting their lame opinions, which I would agree with. So enough about that. How do I calm panic? Well, I just said part of it. You calm panic by being calm yourself. You calm panic by not knowing the future. You calm panic by knowing there are different options out there possible. And then you calm panic by inviting other people to think about other possibilities and words like, are you sure? And how do you know for sure? Are you 100% sure? As soon as a person admits they're not 100% sure, we have some leverage there. Some of it is for you to model being decent and calm, and you're going to see in a week or so, maybe it might be 2, but I bet it's less than that, the grocery store, the stores are going to catch up. There's going to be stuff there. There'll be ketchup there too, but there's going to be stuff available. It'll all be available. You know, it'll be open, maybe different hours or whatever, but you can go get food. You can go get what you need. It's not going to be that kind of a world. Jody, anything else? Are you panicked?
I am not panicked. And I'm assuming that person's hopefully talking about other people being panicked, but if they are themselves, I would say, if you're watching a lot of news and a lot of reading a lot of stuff on Facebook and stuff that's panicking you, stop. Stop doing that. Get the information you need and act on it. And everybody keeps trying to reiterate this. Just be wise, stay clean, keep your hands washed, try to stay away from. But I think, for me also is
I promoted you to a panelist. So
I got it now.
Ta-da.
Ta-da. Now I have no idea how my lighting is and all.
Yeah, the light's too bright behind you.
Well,
if you turn it off, you'll be fine. But keep talking.
Okay.
I'm creating all kind of problems. But the American flag's in there, so. Oh my goodness.
Well, I know. Just give me a second here.
Oh, so okay. Jody's in. Yeah, that'd be fine. Jody's in a room we have darkened for grandchildren to nap in. So
yes,
that's the problem. You could have turned your computer. I should have told.
Oh man, I had a good thought. Oh, okay. It's
panic.
Just praise and thankfulness. Just
gratitude. There's a very great power of being thankful
for the good things going on, and help them do that same thing too. Just
exactly.
help reorient them to, oh my gosh, aren't you? We're in America. We've got so many resources, and there's just a million things a day to be thankful for. And I think if you can, for yourself, your children, your friends, get them thinking on those things, would also help calm their mind. Excellent.
Yep. Being grateful for what you have is a big deal. And they know this. I mean, even in psychological studies, it's just magic. So it's just very powerful in reorienting your mind to think about good things. This is, if you think about good things, you feel better. So if you look around and start, your story is to look for good things. That would be a great exercise for a family to sit and let's make a master list of all the things we can be happy about or thankful about or have gratitude about right now. That could be massive. Probably need to post that on a wall, there. Third question was, how do I use this as a teaching tool? Well, I think all of this that I've been sharing is part of it. The most important thing you want to do is get your children to you want to get your children to learn that they don't know the future. The more you can do that, the more they can think, so since we don't know the future, what are we going to do? We're going to be wise about what we consume. We're going to be wise about purchases. We're going to be wise about who we see and don't. This is part of why we don't get to see grandmom and granddad right now, because they're in that population that could be susceptible. We don't want to accidentally infect them because we may be infected and don't know it. And so if you go through that kind of process, everything is an opportunity to learn something. You just see something happening and say, what can we learn from it? We see this, what can we learn from it? We have this idea, we tried it and it worked, what do we learn? Learning is actually, a process constantly of experimentation. It's trial and error. All learning is trial and error. That's why failure tends to be a problem. One of my mottos lately is I don't fail, I just win or learn. So I'm in the process of winning or I'm learning, because failure is actually a function of just quitting. So in the process, it's not like all of you learn to walk and all your kids learn to walk. And the first time they tried it and fell down, you didn't say, "Oh, you'll never learn to walk. What's wrong with you, you little failure?" No, they didn't quit. They kept going because they were learning. So really, using this as a teachable moment is to take all these lessons and see what we can learn, even about people who are panicked, even about what they're trying to do. We can study a little bit. I mean, you're going to find they're going to learn more about this virus as it goes along. And I think that knowledge will calm things down, because I don't think it's going to pose what the speculation says it does. But I could be wrong. See how I said that? Finally, how do I help my church?
Hang on, Fred. I just
Yeah.
had a thought on that
That's
too.
right.
Just also, even your child, your children, seeing different people's responses. Maybe you're not freaked, but they have some friends that are freaked, or they're seeing people on the news freaked. Just pointing out and discussing the whole thing about the stories that Fred had talked about. You actually, you're not, the panic people don't have to be panicked. The calm people don't have to be calm. Our minds can choose which direction to go in, and so they're not stuck. Maybe they are fearful, but they're not stuck in that fear.
Well, let me tweak something you said. Everything you said is right. I just would express it a little differently. I wouldn't say we can choose, but I would say we can choose the story we focus on. And this is part of what happens. The media can't tell us how to think, but they can tell us what to think about. Because what they keep saying, we're going to have to think about if we watch them. And if we don't, if they don't bring up a story, they don't bring up some of the good stories. They don't bring some of the other things out there statistically. So we can't think about them. So we can direct our mind to what we think about. I don't know if we can choose directly what we feel.
Great.
You see what I mean? Just a
Yes.
tweak.
Yes. No, great. Thanks.
Not a big deal. Your point's great. And how do I help church and community? I think this is for me, a big issue of virtue. There are probably people in your neighborhood who are older, infirmed, or have some challenges. Just as little as offering to go pick them up stuff from the grocery store and deliver it. If they didn't want to fool, if they don't have a delivery thing, or maybe some errands they need run when they're quarantined, that'd be huge. The local churches, I'd say follow what they ask you to do, because they're thinking about this harder than anybody is for your local community. But it's more of a mindset of helpfulness. So if you have in mind, I want to help, you'll see things come to the fore. It's kind of like that idea thing. What do you want? I want to help. I mean, some of the way you help, I tried to help Saturday by going out and mowing the front yard. Made the neighborhood look a little better, made it look like I wasn't scared to burn some gas, made it look like life was going on. And I'm trying to model to everybody that life goes on, and we're going to get through this. We're going to figure it out. And in the meantime, I want to do as many normal things as possible. In Auschwitz and the German concentration camps, people were writing symphonies. They were drawings and masterpieces on walls with whatever they had, artists. People still created. It didn't serve a real purpose, except it allowed them to stay human. And the most powerful thing we could probably do for anyone in community and church is stay as normal as possible. Just go ahead and do life. Nothing says you can't go out. You might, you can't gather in big groups. You don't need to go slobber on people. We could use some wisdom here. But the elderly are probably going to be stuck. And that's going to be the group that we want to figure out how to make sure we've taken care of. What do you think, Jody?
No, it sounds great. And just stay away from all the complaining. I keep hearing even the people that aren't panicked are complaining about the panickers. So try to set your mind on some other things.
Yeah, get a grip, really. All right, so what other questions do people have? Oh, my computer came back to life, I think. So, Jody, are there any questions? Did you freeze up?
No, I can see, let's see, questions. I don't think there are any new ones, but no.
What I do want to mention, here we go, is I think this works. Can you see that? I'll leave it here.
Yes.
So, look, if you want, I have it's a process I've worked on a really long time to calm anxiety. This is another thing you can do with the kids. It's a checklist of questions. And it goes through and helps them think about, what they're stressed about. It makes them create some different possibilities and then a different hopeful future. There's a little sequence of steps we go through. I would love to give you a copy of that. So, but the way for me to do it, or the way I'd like to do it, is to get you to go to independenthomeschool.com/anxiety. That little page will let you just throw in an email. You can always unsubscribe. It's no big deal. And the system will today send you a copy of that whole little process, a little nicely done certificate kind of version of it. This has been a joy for us, those who might see this in another context. If they'll write for this to independenthomeschool.com/anxiety, it'll be available. Anyway, we've got fun times ahead, a little virtue, a little creativity, and I think everything will work out great. So, bless you. Glad you were here, and we'll stay in touch.
Yeah. Bye-bye.